be to God, and now be seated in the very presence of God. And our focus is going to be in verse 8, where it says, and he made the laver of brass, and the foot of it of brass, of the looking glasses of the women assembling, which assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And so our thought for this lesson is the sacrifice of the women for the church. And the sacrifice of the women for the church. October, as we know, has been designated Women's Month. And for the next 4 Sundays, the women will be bringing the message. The women's chorus will be singing. The committees have been formed, and they're making preparations to celebrate the contributions of the women to the church. We wouldn't have much of a church were it not for the women. Whenever we ask for volunteers, it's always the women who come forward first. Whenever we need somebody to prepare food and to serve in the kitchen, it's always the women who step forward. Whenever we have programs and ask you to come back in the evenings, it's usually the women who come back for the programs. When we have a call for a prayer meeting, it's usually the women that come out for prayer. When we need funds for special projects for the church, it's usually the women who take the lead in raising funds. The women always have and still do sacrifice for the church. Even though for years they were silenced and not allowed to speak in the church, the women still made sacrifices for the church. But when we read the Old Testament and read about the temple and the tabernacle, we find no mention of the women during that time.
That's right.
Thank you, Alex. God gave Moses the instructions for the temple. God told him the length of it. God specified the width of the temple. God told him how to make the vessels for the temple, where to use gold and where to use silver and where to use the brass. God spelled out every detail of the temple. And David wanted to build the temple, but God refused him, but he allowed his son Solomon to build a temple. And so Solomon gathered hundreds of craftsmen and stone cutters and carpenters. And they spent 7.5 years building a magnificent temple. And after the temple was built, Aaron and his sons were appointed to be the priest. And David appointed the Levites to be the singers and the porters in the temple. So it was the men who built the temple. Only men were allowed to work on the temple. Only the men were required to attend the temple. There's no mention of the women at the temple, as if they had no part in the temple. But Moses recorded this one verse out of all the 5 books that he wrote. He gave one verse about the temple to the women. He said, and he made a laver of brass, and the foot of it of brass, of the looking glasses of the women. In other words, he took the mirrors of the women. The women gave their mirrors for the temple. And mirrors are very important to women. I'm sure every woman here that has a purse has a mirror in that purse. But they didn't have mirrors like we have today. We got mirrors in the bathroom. We got mirrors in the bedroom. We got mirrors in the hall. At one time, we even had mirrors on the ceiling. I'm sorry. Well, I was younger then. Some of y'all did too. But so I still do. But the point I'm making is we got mirrors all through the house. But they only had one mirror. And can you imagine going without your mirrors? Try doing without your mirror for a week. Everybody in here, before you left home today, you looked in the mirror. We look in the mirrors to see if our hair is right. Women look in the mirrors to see if your makeup is on right. We look in the mirror to see if our clothes are fitting us the right way. Try living without your mirrors for a week. How much time would you spend fixing your hair if you didn't have a mirror? How much time would you spend putting on your makeup if you did not have a mirror? Mirrors allow us to see ourselves, to see where we need to improve, to see where we need to add something to see where we need to take something away. People use mirrors to practice when they're going to give a speech. They'll get in front of a mirror and practice their speech. But these women only had one mirror. And they gave up their mirrors. Thank you, Alex. Didn't have but one. How many of you ladies, if you only had just that one little mirror in your purse, and that's the only mirror you had, and I told you I'd like to have your mirrors for something for the church, and there was no place to get another mirror. See, it wasn't like they could go to Walmart and buy another mirror. They only had that one little